The title is The Inherent Strengths in Kinship Families. The third module is focused on identity, and that I'll be talking about today. I think what's special about this particular module is it gives you an idea of how relative caregivers and how children in kinship avoid losing identity, because that's the strength of kinship care. Children avoid losing the multiple identities that they have by being with family. The fourth module is on healing. And in that module, I will be talking about how relative caregivers help children adjust to the losses they experience when no longer being able to be with parents, and how also caregivers help children deal with the possible losses related to trauma and how you're involved in that healing process. And the last will be adaptability. And in that one, which to me is the most powerful strength, is I'll have a chance to talk about what's powerful and what's strong about kinship care, specifically how relative caregivers are able to assume the roles and the responsibilities and the relationships that are necessary to keep children in families and out of the system. So I'll start with identity. Let me share with you why I came up with that topic and how I came up with this topic, and I'll share with you a story. I had the opportunity of meeting with a child, and he had just gone into care. And I'd asked him, "Do you know why you're going into kinship care?" And he said to me, "Well, because my parents couldn't keep me because they couldn't take care of me." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he says, "Guess what? Can't most parents keep their children and take care of them?" I said, "Most of the time they can, but things can happen." Is what he says to me. And then he said, "Well, my parents couldn't keep me. Most parents can keep their kids. There must be something wrong with my parents. And if there's something wrong with my parents, there must be something wrong with..." I'm not going to finish that statement. Could you chat to me what you think how he ended that statement? If something is wrong with my parents, there, and in your chat, finish that sentence. And Candy, could you read back to me what people are saying?
I can absolutely read that. Me, must be something wrong with me.
Perfect. That's right. Something must be wrong with me. Now, first of all, I was shocked when he said all that to me. You know, can parents keep their children? My parents didn't keep me. There must be something wrong with my parents. Therefore, something must be wrong with me. So I was just shocked with the logic of that. And then I asked him, "Who did you talk to about that?" He said, "Nobody." I said, "Well, who talked to you about that?" "Nobody." "Well, who told you that?" He said, "Nobody." And I said, "Well, where did you get that idea?" "From me." Now, the shock for me was hearing him with that logic, number one, associating his identity with his parents, number two, and then here's the shocker for me. He was only 6 years old, and he'd already developed an identity based on what he observed and how he felt about his parents. So that's when I realized, okay, caregivers already have enough. You already have enough to deal with, but you also have to deal with identity, and they're bringing that into placement with them. So because of that, that's why I decided I think we better talk about identity. And these are the things I'd like to discuss. First, I'd like to define and highlight the importance of identity. And I think from that example that I just gave you, you might be getting an idea about why it's so important. Then I'd explain why kinship families have a significant impact on identity formation. And then I'd like to describe how to impact the development of positive identity. And then talk about how to help in the development of identities that disrupt family cycles. So let's start with definitions. Now, if you notice, I have a two-part definition here. The first part identifies identity as the memories, experiences, relationships, and values that creates one's sense of self. And I'd like to add a little bit to that definition as well. It also determines your behavior, your actions, and your choices. And I'll get back to why I added that to the definition. The second part of this definition has to do with you as a caregiver. Identity formation or development is a process during which a person develops a self-concept of their values, qualities, and characteristics as an individual. A lot of words there. What that basically means is that you, as a caregiver, develop their identity. That's the bottom line. Doesn't make you totally responsible for it, but you have a tremendous amount of input, and it's because of those three sources that you provide: individual and personal experiences, family identity and experiences and relationships, culture, and the environment. When I ask myself the question, now who's going to provide the personal experiences? Who's going to provide the family identity? Who's going to provide the culture? Who's going to exposure to the environment? I kept coming back to you, the caregiver. So you are crucial in identity formation. And let's talk a little bit about what identity does for you and give you. In fact, I'll ask you, if you would, please in the chat, would you tell me what identity has done for you and given you throughout your lifetime? And just list it, one-word answers, keep it simple. What does identity give you, and what does it do for you? And Candy, when you start getting some responses, could you share them, please?
Absolutely. Here we go. Sense of self, connection to others, confidence, a self-belonging and understanding, and purpose.
Excellent. Now I'm going to ask the question again, but a little bit differently. What does a negative identity do for you and give you? And please put that in the chat.
Shame, guilt, not belonging, poor morale, no support, insecurities, low self-esteem, lack of worth.
Powerful. I just kind of pretty much listed what you just talked about. It gives you a sense of self-confidence, gives you a sense of worth, purpose, also gives you motivation, gives you a commitment to others, that piece that you talked about, relationships. I added the word resilience, the ability to handle challenges and disappointments, the ability to get back up when you've been knocked down. The tolerance for frustration, I think that's another one that you can add to that list that you mentioned. And then this is crucial: values, principles that can dictate choices and decisions that you make. It can also affect opportunities, privileges, entitlements, and the feeling of safety. Now, the reason why I asked you about the negative is because if you think about kinship care and what you do as a caregiver, you also impact the children's sense of worth. Their relationship with you impacts their sense of purpose. Their relationship with you gives them a sense of commitment based on that relationship with you. And it also gives them a sense of values and principles that dictate their choices in their future that may be and hopefully will be different from their birth parents or even from the family, and may have resulted in the reason why they ended up in care. So let me talk about your importance and why kinship care is so important and what makes you significant in identity formation. You provide the child a sense of history. There's some questions that children ask, such as, what was I like? What was my birth like? Where did I live? What was the quality of my life? You provide that information. You're that primary source of information. You provide history about their parents, history about their family, history about their community. And what makes that different from foster care and adoption is that you have direct information to those questions. You are a firsthand source of information about personal history. You've got credibility because you know, you've been there, you've got access to what are the answers to those questions about who I am and what I'm like. The third strength, which makes you very special and kinship care special, is the fact that you can mirror for your children what they can be like as a family member. You can answer those questions. Who am I like? What am I like? And the question of what can I be like? I think that's the other thing that you mirror for the children. And even though foster parents and adoptive parents can be a mirror as well, for you to be a mirror as kin and as family, it's even more powerful. So I want to ask you one more question. When you think back through your life and while growing up, who was more influential in developing your identity? Was it strangers or was it family? And would you put that answer in the chat? Who was more influential in developing your identity? Strangers or family? Even if it was positive or negative, but who was most influential?
Okay, it looks like a unanimous response of family.
Okay, that's the power of kinship care. That's what's so significant about kinship care, is the influence that you have on that child's identity. And also because of your attachment with that child, you have such a major influence on that identity, which means that you're going to affect how they make choices and the decisions that they're going to be making in the future. This may sound a little bit strange, but as they attach to you, and I talked about this in the last session, as they attach to you, they may start attaching to you. Well, I'll ask you the question. How do the children attach to you? Do they attach to you as an aunt, uncle, grandparent, or fill in the blank? Or what? Any responses, Candy?
Yes, mother, parent, grandparent, parental figure.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, that's what
Parent,
happens. Yep.
parent.
Yep, there you go. Parent, mom, dad. That's the attachment. Even though you may tell them, please don't call me mom, please don't call me dad, the reality is that they still attach to you as a parent. And here's my next question to you. Do you think it's appropriate for you to allow them to attach to you as a parent? Yes or no? And why?
Yes, because you have taken on the parental role. Yes. One says depends on circumstance. Yes, normacy, consistency. Yes, because they need to have that bond. Yes, because of stability and support.
Okay, it sounds like everybody's saying yes. Now, because of that attachment, if you think about children, the ultimate compliment that they can pay to you, that they can give you, is being able to say things like, when I grow up, I want to be just like you. Or when I grow up, I'm going to marry somebody like you, mom. I'm going to marry somebody like you, dad. Or how about this one? When I grow up, I'm never, ever going to leave you. So if you think about the ultimate compliment to you as a caregiver, and now they're looking at you as a parent, you need to be aware of the fact that you now become the mirror for their identity when they start asking the question, who am I? What am I? What can I be like? You may not want that role, just like you don't necessarily want them to call you mom or dad, but I just think it's important that you just be aware of the fact that they're now looking at you differently and that you've become a primary source and reference for them around their identity. Question for you as caregivers, how does that make y'all feel? Hearing me saying that you're the primary source. And you can just jot down in the chat what that makes you feel like.
Andrea responds, my grandson tells me every day that he's going to live with me forever.
That's great. But that's a compliment. Anyone else?
Nope, that's all I got
Okay,
so far.
that says it all. Okay. All right, now let's look at your role in helping them develop that identity. You're going to have to be, and you already probably are, helping them discover and develop their potentials and their talents. You're going to be providing them a model of purpose and values and goals. You're going to be helping them and providing them opportunities to exercise their potential and purpose. So I just want you to, and these are things you're already doing, and you're probably doing this instinctively, but I just want you to be on a conscious level aware of what you're doing around their development. And here's the part that I think is so significant. When you think back to the reasons why the children came into your care, one of the things that you will be doing with the children is giving them a chance to make decisions and to make choices that will disrupt and hopefully not cause them to repeat the same mistakes. You want to make sure you're going to be giving them values that are going to be different, that'll hopefully eliminate the reasons that brought them into care. So what I want to talk about now is how you can shape their identities to break cycles, how you can shape their identity to allow them to make choices. And under approaches, I'm going to start off with, and this may sound strange, you want to make sure that you don't recreate the monster. And you want to make sure that you're not setting up the child for a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anybody in the chat want to tell me what you think I mean by that? Recreating the monster? How can you recreate the monster? How can you recreate self-fulfilling prophecies? Anybody want to give that a shot in terms of how that can happen? I'll even be more specific. What might you want to avoid saying to the children that might make them recreate the reasons why they came into care?
Okay, we have a response from Hannah: by not undergrowing your own feelings, telling them they act just like their bio parent.
Wow.
You're just like your dad.
Wow. Okay. You could be doing this training. Whoever those folks were that were giving me those answers, because you hit it right on the head. You want to avoid saying those things of, you're just like your mom, you're just like your dad. And you want those comments in the scripts to be like this: don't think you can't help but turn out like your parents. You want to be able to say that. You want to be able to say, don't believe everything you hear about your family and your parents when it comes to things like, you're just like them, you're going to do the same mistakes they did, you're going to turn out just like them. You want to be able to tell them that you are different. You want to make sure that if you are going to talk to them and compare them to my mom and dad, there's certain ways that you do that. But the first thing that is so paramount is letting them know that they're not their mom, they're not their dad, because if you hear it long enough, you'll start believing it. And if you start believing it, then you'll do it. Let me share this with you. I was working with a teenager who was starting to steal. And I asked him, why are you doing it? What's this all about? He says, well, I can't help it. I'm just like mom, I'm just like dad, and they were thieves. And then I asked him where you got that from. Well, my grandmom always told me I was just like mom, I was just like dad. So here's the response, folks. I can't help myself. Now, I don't know if he really believed it or if that was just an excuse. My whole point is, you don't want to become the excuse for why the children act out. You don't want to become the excuse or the scapegoat that they use to justify their behavior. And when you're saying things like, you're just like mom, just like your dad, you're setting yourself up to be the scapegoat and you're providing them the excuse. So that's one reason why you want to avoid making those kind of statements. And if you hear that other people are saying that to them, that's why it's important to add this other part of the script. Don't think you can't help but turn out like them because of what other people are saying. Anybody want to respond to that? What do you think? How many people have had to deal with children who have used that as an excuse? I'm just like mom and dad. And then what did you say and do about it? Could you put that in the script? In your chat, please?
Andrea says, wow, I'm guilty. I've told them so many times, then you can then no more.
Oh, that's great. You made my day. I told them that many times, and then the part, no more. Exactly. Yeah. So you're not going to be the scapegoat. You're not going to be the excuse. In fact, go back to them about those statements. It's okay to go back now. Make those and let them know that it's not true, that it's different. Even if you have to say, look, I've thought about that again, and you know what? That's not true. So frame it that way, but backtrack. It's okay. You haven't damaged, but just let them know that you've thought it out and that you don't like what was said, that you don't like how you said that, and you want them to think differently about themselves. Andrea, what do you think about that? What are you going to try to do to go back? And just put it in the chat.
Absolutely.
Okay, fine. Sounds like you know what you're going to say. Sounds like you're going to know you're going to script. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because the reality is DNA is for real. Genetics is for real. You see your brother or your sister or your daughter in the children. You see yourselves in the children. So it's not like you're just imagining this. They walk like mom, they talk like mom, they talk like dad. Look at yourself in the mirror and you see your own parents. So it's not like you don't have a reason for feeling that and saying that. And it's not like you don't even have a reason for being afraid of that. Okay? So it's not like you're imagining it, but it's just that you don't want it to become the self-fulfilling prophecy. So the reason why I'm saying that is because you know what you're seeing. It's very natural to say, hey, look, you're acting like, but you want to avoid it. And if you do say it, you just need to kind of regroup and go back and talk about what you really meant. And so that you won't be scapegoated. So I just want to normalize the feeling. It's not like you're being a terrible person or a wrong person because you say that. It's very natural to say that. You know what you're seeing. Okay. But if you do, and if you've done that, then backtrack.